founders who are in love with their problem and in love with the customer, those are founders that find a way to become successful. The ones that are in love with their idea and their product fail in massive numbers. And so how do you get those founders who have this what they believe is a great idea and everybody's going to want to buy this? How do you back them up and turn it into a clinical exercise? And that's what Launch First is all about.
What's the one problem you're perfectly positioned to solve? Hard question, and one that demands more than just a single answer. AI startups today are like architects trying to build an entire city when they haven't even mastered how to build a single room. Every feature becomes another building, every idea another street, until a little AI chaos, we call them unexpected edge cases, flummox it all up, and it starts giving back not so good answers. The stuff we don't expect. Soon, these founders are stretched too thin to build anything that lasts. One problem costing money, one solution that makes their lives measurably better. This week, a conversation with Tekyz CEO David Hirschfeld, where we try to cut through the noise and actually show you something that's simple, but remember, simple's never easy to do. As David says, founders who are in love with their problem are usually in love with the customer. Those are founders that find a way to become successful. The ones that are in love with their idea and their product fail in massive numbers. Why? That's worth unpacking, especially as we start seeing what AI is going to do in 2025. Before the problem, let's jump into your FUD factor. What's your FUD factor, the one perfect problem to solve, simplify? It all comes down to something deeper than features or benefits, addressing fundamental human fears.
What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And why does it matter? From a perceived impact, you're solving this problem because people perceive this as a big problem, and because it costs a quantifiable amount that they'll save that money back, or they'll get that money back if you fix the problem for them. And those are two separate numbers, right? Perception and actual are two, and you need to know both, because perception gets them to lean forward and say, can you fix that for me? And the cost is the way that you get them to spend money with you. So you get because the higher the cost and the higher perceived impact, then that means you can get more people interested and you can charge more for your product. So who is that early adopter? What niche has the highest perceived impact and has the highest cost for the problem you're solving? And tease it out in terms of their survival. What is it about that problem that makes them scared, right? Because it all comes down to fear and discomfort. If somebody is afraid and uncomfortable, they want that discomfort to go away and they want to mitigate the fear, right? And those are always problems, right? I mean, even if you want to go on vacation, the only thing that motivates people is to try to assuage those things. Like you want to go on a vacation because it sounds exciting, because that excitement mitigates this fear of being bored and missing out. So everything is about it. I hate to say it, it's all about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. My IBM really nailed this idea early on. This idea of fear, focus on fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I always thought that was just a very negative way of scaring people so you could win deals. And I started to realize it's not just that. It's the primary thing that motivates everybody to do the things that they do.
I was interviewing Richard White of Fathom, who's the AI note-taking service, and a great example.
Right, yeah.
He's a total product dev guy. So her first thing was hypothesis, and that we can take transcription. This is pre-AI, when his investors would even freak out if he said AI, because that wasn't a good thing, like 2020-ish. And so he said, we can take transcription to nothing. That was the hypothesis. And the thing I loved listening to him, he would then prove that, obviously. And now he's proving more and more, but he kept so focused and disciplined around growing, not getting too crazy, not trying to compete, with salespeople, like Gong is his big competitor who's totally sales focused and is a very unique flavor. He can do it, but kudos to Gong. If you're doing a sales specific one, there's going to be energy, psychology, aggressiveness that's going to be very different than somebody taking a note taking at a CPA service,
Right, exactly, right, yeah.
So he applied that same sort of one lean kind of focus. Now, I know it's like not the lean startup.
Yeah, well, that's the definition of lean is basically you make a hypothesis and then you come up with an experiment to prove that the hypothesis is true. And when you talk about product market fit, there's only one measure for product market fit, and that's people will pay more than what it costs you to find a customer. And you only know you have it when you've received money enough times that you know it wasn't a fluke. Founders who are in love with their problem and in love with the customer, those are founders that find a way to become successful. The ones that are in love with their idea and their product fail in massive numbers. And so how do you get those founders who have this what they believe is a great idea and everybody's going to want to buy this? How do you back them up and turn it into a clinical exercise? And that's what Launch First is all about.
Understanding these core motivations takes more than insight. It takes a team to transform that AI understanding into action. Remember, transformation, AI transformation, is about taking our old software habits and updating them with what AI can do with us. And David's approach to building these teams reveals something unexpected. When you're building something that matters, the foundation isn't just your idea, it's your team. David spent 9 months in India, not over a decade, not because it was trendy, but because he understood something fundamental about creating really good teams. People talk about using offshore, he says, but they literally treat it like throwing a ball over a fence and hoping there's somebody else on the other side to catch it. Building in the AI age isn't about location. It's about creating a culture of analytical thinking and creative problem solving and giving people the space to be creative with AI. Well, talk to us about your Launch First process and how you because simple's hard to do. Mm-hmm. And with your experience and with your teams, how do you sort of make things look simple, even though there's a lot going on in the background? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how to make it actually working. That's what I mean by simplicity, not just the design, but like the functions.
Right. And it's not simple, right? There's a lot of moving parts, right, that have to coordinate. There's a lot of planning involved, and it comes down to discipline and culture. You basically putting systems in place, getting everybody comfortable with the systems, and continuing to identify patterns that are efficient, putting the systems around those patterns and getting everybody comfortable. Because you want to, and then automating as much of that as possible. Because the whole goal of this is to have predictability and consistency and quality and efficiency, right? Without restricting everybody so that their work, you feel like they're a cog in a machine, because then you lose all the creativity. And so, whether you're documentation or an administrator, a tester or a developer or project manager, everybody has to be treated in such a way that everybody's opinion has a lot of respect and that having an opinion is important. So like if I ask somebody, we need this done, I don't want them to say, okay, I'll have that done right away. I want them to come back and say, here's a better way to do it. Or are you sure you want to do that? Maybe we want to wait because of these other factors. And sometimes it gets a little frustrating. I just want my team to do it. But I've built a team where they're very analytical. And so often we'll have a debate about things that are a technical approach or architectural approach or the order of delivery or whatever it is. It always benefits the client, always benefits our business by having this kind of a culture in our business.
But you work with some folks in India for many years.
Well, actually, my team is still in India. But I made 15 trips to India between 2010 and the pandemic to build my teams in India. People talk about using offshore, but it's like throwing a ball over the fence and hoping there's somebody there to catch it. And that is not how you build an exceptional team, right? You have to basically be part of their culture and acculturate them in your culture. And you build, that's how you build teams. So, and it takes a lot of travel and a lot of time changes. I figured I added it up once. I spent 9 months in India during those, 11 years, 10 years, 9 months total time working with my team several times a year on some years. But then we can build, it doesn't matter where they are. If you building exceptional team has to do with protocols and discipline and consistency and analytical thinking and certain traits. And once the team forms right, then they become fiercely defensive about not polluting their team with people that don't fit in the culture. So yeah, and once then they become independent. Then they grow themselves at that point. But to get there, it takes some work.
No, totally. And it's funny
Yeah.
that people use the word remote, where what you're outlining is if you're really going to do, especially working with a team at a level that I get the sense that you're really doing a lot of projects. It's
Yeah.
not just seeing them in person, but part of the getting to know their culture, knowing how you can adapt and how they can adapt. And basically, what's funny is the last thing you turn when it works, it's not remote. You may not even see those. I know some people in India I haven't even met yet that I know more about than some people I'm really local to. That's an internet thing, but
Right. Well, I even created a company in India, Tekyz Tech Private Limited, and my director of development, who started with me as a tester, and she was a clear outlier, just brilliant and never good enough at anything. So she was like, in all of our off hours, just focused on just being better and smarter. And so I just kept pushing her into higher levels of responsibility. And she said, I'm not skilled enough to do that. And I said, well, too bad you're doing it. And I'm here to support you, so don't worry. And she will always rise to the occasion until she finally took over the whole development team. And now she's my partner in that Tekyz Tech. We founded that just last December.
but even the best team needs a clear target. This is where David's process gets real, turning ideas into testable hypotheses before writing a single line of code. Here's where we enter the simulation. This is where, if you're watching along, I don't care if you have an AI startup, this applies to creatives, to entrepreneurs, to small businesses. Give it a shot, because this high value problem isn't limited to AI. AI just helps us do it a little bit better. And here's where most AI startups get it backwards. They build first, then search for problems to solve. David's approach? Simulate before you stimulate. If you come up with a simulation of your product that's realistic enough so people don't ask you, how do I know you can build this? They need to trust it. That's a critical success factor. It's about validating your market before investing in development or creating the product in the first place. But this only works if you're solving a problem people face regularly. This simulation is where you come in. Maybe you have a startup, a business, a creator building influence. What applies here applies to all of us, I think. If we're taking a startup, it's 2025. I know let's say it's a product development, sort of like a Fathom or something, not a SaaS, but subscription model. Walk us through sort of like, not just your process, but you're talking to them. What are the key points, and what should a startup look for in this like evolving world of AI heading into 2025?
The best startups are people that say, okay, I work in an industry and I struggle with this problem often, like on a daily or weekly basis. If I struggle twice a year, it's not top of mind enough to be good for a startup problem to solve, because it's very difficult to get people to continue to keep it top of mind when they're, thinking of a product. But if it's something you struggle with daily or weekly, then that's a problem. And you know that the impact to you is significant, and you can easily quantify the cost because of the impact. So you have both the perception and you have the cost. Then that is a good problem to tackle. Now, if you're in an industry with lots of people just like you, all struggling with the same problem you're struggling with, and you know that because you go to conferences or you have some reach to that population, now you've got the foundation of something that should be a successful startup. Because once you've solved the problem, unless you're just not honest with yourself about other people struggling with the problem, what the real cost of the problem was, you should be able to go to all these other people, and they should relate to the fact that you understand their problem and that they need it solved, right? And you know what the cost is. You're offering it at a value that makes it obvious they need to do this. So, and there are other factors that come into play that make it difficult for some of those people to make that decision because of where they are in the organization, or because you're changing a mindset and a workflow in a context where changing minds and workflows is more difficult, and some of those things can be an impact. But you're 50% of the way there. You have a much, much higher chance of being successful if you have those foundational pieces in place.
Perhaps the most misunderstood part of building successful AI solutions, the difference between fitting a market and actually solving a problem. In part 4, product market fit versus solution fit. Get beyond the words. David is dropping some truth bombs. The one thing that everybody misses is how to confirm product market fit before you invest your money in developing the product. This is where he says the lean startup usually fails. You don't really want to build something and find out that nobody actually wants it. But this is what 95 out of 100 startups do. The difference, product market fit means people might buy it. Product solution fit means they'll actually use it. And you focus a lot on product market fit, obviously, and you have a number of outlines on your site of like what traditional product market fit, I don't even know what that means, but in general, what happened before compared to how we do product market fit now? What are the common things that people should watch out for, having Googled product market fit and studying something from McKinsey in 2004 that's like not even in the same universe anymore?
So the one thing, I love lean startup, but the one thing that it misses is how to confirm product market fit before you invest in the development of your product. So, because you don't really want to build something and find out nobody wants it. But this is what 9 out of 10 startups do, maybe 95 out of 100. I mean, the percentage is so high. And then it's just a matter of whether you have the cash reserves to pivot enough times to find product market fit, if there is one, before you run out of money and you go down. And I've worked with lots of startups where this has happened, and I've worked with some that have been wildly successful. So, right, but the ones that aren't successful, they always fail for the same reason. They didn't validate product market fit early enough. And there's only one way to do it, and that's to ask somebody to pay you money for your idea. And if they will pay you money for this product that they will eventually get, then you know you've got product market fit. You may not have product solution fit. That's the other half of the equation. And that's that once you give it to them, they actually start using it because it was designed in a way that actually facilitates solving the problem for them in a way they want to do it. But that's what an MVP should be built for. Everybody builds it for product market fit, which is wrong. It should be built for product solution fit only. So you should already know what your product market fit is. So what does that mean? That means go out and build your sales and marketing engine first, and go out and do pre-launch sales before you build the product. Because if you come up with a simulation of your product that's realistic enough so that people don't ask you, how do I know you can build this? Right? That's a critical success factor. So if you've got a good enough simulation, I call it a high fidelity prototype. These are mock-ups that actually animate just like the real product, so it looks like you're demoing a real product. So if you build that, so that's the part you invest in, the design and the high fidelity prototype. And then you go through a niche analysis process where you figure out, okay, I've got all these niches I can market my product to, right? You've heard the people that said, who's your market? And they go, everybody, right? Okay, that's a formula for failure. So because you have to figure out, okay, maybe there's 20 or 30 niches that you could market your product to when you really break it down. And I have my own definition of what makes a niche. But but you want these niches to be very small and tight. And then when you look at it from a niche's perspective, what are all the various problems at a root level that they struggle with? Because it's slightly different for each niche, how you would word it, right? And you want to know from their perspective, like, what is their survival? When do you get to the survival point in this? In other words, when you ask it, why does somebody need the product, and they answer it, you go, well, why does that matter? Why does that? And you just keep asking why until they get to where, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my job if we don't fix that, or because my career is at an end if I can't solve this problem with losing employees. Or it's got to be something that affects somebody at the level where their gut twists a little bit when they talk about that problem. And that's how you know you're at the root level of the problem. So you list all these problems out, and then you like have a matrix where you say, okay, how impacted is this niche because of this problem from a perception perspective, right? And then you build out this matrix. Well, this is kind of a tedious process, but it's how you really figure out which is the niche that has that highest impact for the problems they're struggling, one or two problems that they're struggling with. And then you do that same matrix from a cost perspective, because they may have a really high perceived impact, but the actual cost is very low, or vice versa, right? So you're looking for where those two things, that perceived impact and that cost, are the highest possible, right? And you do that for the top two or three of all of those problems you identified, because those are the only problems you want to focus on. And that's the niche you can go after, right? And you can validate this in not the discovery interview process, which a lot of startup methodologies use, right? Where the problem with that is that you're asking the same questions from people in different niches very often, and you get a lot of cross-mixed information. So instead, you just think, which of these niches do you already know pretty well? And you can kind of fill in the matrix well. But for the ones you don't, then you ask two or three people in each of those niches that you don't know very well, and you ask them about, are you struggling with this problem? How much does this impact you? How important is it to you find a way to resolve this? If there was something to resolve it, how much would that improve your business? Things like that, right? Don't tell them, I've got a product with this feature. What do you think? Because that's a meaningless question. Anyway, so you do that from cost, you do that from the perception, then you create basically a little bubble graph, and then all of a sudden there's two or three niches that float to the top. And then there's a whole bunch of other steps we go through to validate which of those two or three niches is the ideal niche. A final interview process where we're now validating that all the assumptions we made about the problems and about that niche are true, at least to 30 to 40% of the people there, so that we know when we finish our prototype and we go out and we start to market as a pre-launch sale to those people in that niche, they're going to probably buy. And if they do buy in enough numbers, now you know you have product market fit, and you have revenue that you're generating that helps you fund the development. It's harder up front, it's easier on the backside.
But we should be able to actually go forward and get an idea of where we're going without being like in this ego test. And the only way we can do that is by realizing we don't know anything. Let's go ask the customer. Let's do that every single day. The real power of AI isn't building everything, being the all smart everything. It's in building a solution to one problem exceptionally well. And that transformation starts with finding the high value problem you're solving. So number one, find your daily problem. You want this problem to be daily or weekly. 2, test before you build. And 3, build for solution fit, right? It might fit, they might pay for it, but do they want to use it repeatedly? This is one of the ways that David's going to show us how he's doing it, and now his own 2 AI apps that he's developed from this process of launch first and taking AI, not just wrapping ChatGPT, called an API wrapper for those who don't know. They just use ChatGPT and act like it's their software. He's building his own for these 2 pieces and is challenged by something, even with AI, that even in creating it, you have to realize how fast this is moving and how someone else might come up with the same idea. But a lot of them, especially with AI, I've never seen a place that if you identify the problem right, if you really dial in what you're talking about with launch first, I've never seen cash move so quick when
Mhm.
people actually have got it dialed in and solve like a really clear problem. I know somebody will copy it and buy it and blah, blah, blah. Here, get their money, be really kind to them, actually treat them like somebody important, which they
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
and they'll pay you and they won't go away. And I've seen people creating these bits like on podcasts. So you upload the podcast. Now, I don't need it, but transcribes it, does the social. Now you've got pretty much everything to review. And I can tell you it'll save you like 5-10 hours a week, easy.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple API wrapper from ChatGPT. I mean, this is not
I know.
rocket
Right.
science.
Right. There's a lot of low hanging fruit still, right? And because AI is so consumable,
Right.
and it's so amorphous, it does whatever you want it to do. So you just have to think of the thing that has high value and is discrete, and you automate it. We're working on a couple products right now. That niche analysis piece I was telling you about,
Yeah.
we're working on that as an AI solution. It's not just as simple as a wrapper for OpenAI. There's more to it,
Yeah.
but it's a huge deal because that's where founders get fatigued, is
Right.
doing that effort. Right? There are diligent founders that'll go through it and really do it all, and it becomes such a huge value to them. Plus, it gives them that much more evidence when they do decide they want to raise money later on, in terms of their market research and the depth of what their product, the importance of their product in the market. Um, so we're doing that. And the other one, which is our most expensive development activity, is estimating projects, because we do a way more detailed job than most people when we create our estimates in terms of the breakdown. And so we're building an AI tool, again, more than just a wrapper around OpenAI, but an AI
No.
tool to automate our process that basically mimics what we do, for
Nice.
estimating projects.
God, it's such a great time to be around, isn't it? Like this
It
stuff's
is.
just great. It's
It
just
is.
like
But then it's a
it's
little
like
scary
yeah,
because
totally, totally.
is anybody going to need this estimator in a year? Because AI will be building everything for us, right? I don't know.
Oh wait, fear, uncertainty, doubt. No,
Oh, no
not
question.
again.
No question. Now, if I can figure out a tool to replace that, right?
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
David, thank you. It's been a real blast. Hey, where can people get in touch with you after the podcast, website, and things like that, socials? Where can they
Yeah.
reach out to
So,
you?
yeah, thanks. You can go to LinkedIn is a good place to get me. DM Hirschfeld. You have to look at my, but the easiest way to find me is on my website, Tekyz.com, spelled Tekyz.com. And you can email me at david@tekyz.com. So, yeah, and I'd love to hear from people, even if it's just a fun conversation about startups or about how to uh, transform your business with AI. You hear about digital transformation. Everybody talks about that. It's AI transformation. That's the next buzzword.